Hello everyone. In the last video, we have seen how to find the elements, find the difference between find element and find elements by. So before I go and explain you the dynamic web table data, I just wanted to give you an understanding of the difference between find element by versus find elements by. The reason for doing that video prior to this is because whenever you take any web table, let us say I'm going to take this web table. If you look at this web table, in this web table, if you see, this table data is dynamic in nature. So dynamic in nature means the number of rows in the table and the number of columns in the table, if those are varying or those are changing, if the data is changing, if the columns are changing, and if there is some change which will happen in the application, those kind of tables we call it as dynamic tables, dynamic web tables. So now what will happen if there is a static table? When I say static table, and the number of rows and number of columns are fixed, so these we call it as rows, and the this part is we call it as columns. So now what are we going to do? First of all, we will understand how are we going to invoke this application. Okay, so this is very easy. So you just go there to the Eclipse, create a new program, new class, dynamic web table. This is the example, dynamic web table example, and then select the public static void main and click on finish. Now you know the basic program, so that's the reason I'm just going to the existing program and copying the first couple of lines. So this is to launch the browser. So how are we going to do that? You will go here and then you will paste it, and you will change the URL name here by our URL whatever we wanted to invoke. So take this URL and then insert it. So now we are able to launch the browser. So now what I wanted to do is I wanted to know the total number of rows in this particular web table and total number of columns in this web table. Let us say company, group, previous close, current price, and then change. So there are 5 columns. Let's say if I try to right click here and click on inspect button and then see the company element has come. Now I will write the XPath. Right click, copy, and then copy XPath. So now Control F and then put it here. So see here, if you see, the element which is identified is for the column. So that is th element. So if you take one, that is the first one. If you take two, that is the second one. If you take three, that is the third one. And if you take it as four, that is the fourth one. If you take five, that is the fifth one. If you take six, because that is not there, that's the reason it is showing zero. So that's the reason how many th tags are there. We have 5 tags are there. That means we wanted to identify how many th tags are there using the program. So how are we going to do that? So to do that, what you have to do, you need to know the XPath. So now we got to know how are we going to take the XPath. So th, this is not a single element. When I say if it is a single element, you will be using the find element by method. If it is multiple elements which is of same category, you are going to use find elements by. So how are we going to do that? So to do that, you have to make use of a property called the list. You take list and then you will be writing the web element. You will be defining the list of web element. I am going to take the columns. So column, that is my variable. So how you will be writing? So where is your driver? Your driver dot and then find elements by. because we need to have so many elements of that category. By dot and then xpath and then take the xpath whatever you have on the screen. Take this xpath and then give it here, double quotes, and then give it and then enter the semicolon at the end. So that means you are going to get the total number of column elements. So see here, you have to import the necessary libraries. Keep here, and for list, if you place the mouse over here, you have to import the Java util library, and then web element also you have to import. So those got imported on top. See here, util list, and then you have imported the web element also. Automatically the errors will go. So now what I wanted to do is I wanted to write how many total number of columns are there. System.out.println, and then we will be having the total number of columns plus, that means you have to write the variable name column. How are you going to get that? You are going to get the size of the element. So if you give that size, then automatically it will display the total number of elements. Those are the columns. So this will display the total number of columns. Similarly, if I wanted to do it for the number of rows also, if you wanted to display, just go here. See, assume this is one row, or this is another row, this is another row, this is another row. Like, see, there are how many rows you have? This is first row, this is second row, third row, fourth, fifth, sixth, like that you will have so many rows. I'll take one example. Let's say inspect, and then go and click on this element. See here, under TR, these are all the elements. TR stands for table row. So this is what we are looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this XPath, take this and then copy XPath. And if you see, this is tr3, but if I remove these tags, so see how many rows we have got. We have got 26 rows. So that's the reason whenever you're identifying the elements, you need to ensure that you're writing the right XPath. So under tr, for example, if I take my td element of 1, what it is giving me, see, tr is my row, table row, and TD, table data. If I take first table data also, I do have total number of rows as 26. That means this is 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that you will be having total number of rows are 26. You can change the data like this also. Each row, if you see, each data which is there in the corresponding test data cell, it will display, right? So if I have to check for my second row, let's say if I give second row and then td1, then see what is going to happen. TD row, and see, second row first data, if I give 2, it will display my second A, and if I give 3, it will display my third value, that is 65. So like that you can change whatever you want. For now, to retrieve all the rows, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take TD1, at least one value if you take. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to retrieve the rows. So how are we going to do that? So to do that, same copy, and then instead of columns, you will be writing it as rows is equal to, and then what is your driver element? Driver dot find element, and I'll write the XPath after this. You write like this, and then by dot XPath, and in the XPath, whatever the XPath you have, just go here and copy paste, double quotes, and then paste it. and then semicolon. Now what you have to do is you have to write the output for this also. So same thing whatever we have done here, just do number of rows, and then instead of columns you are going to write rows dot size. So now if you run the program, see I'm just closing this and then trying to execute this one more time. See what is the outcome for this. So you'll be able to see the total number of rows and total number of columns for this application table. How many are there? So there are 5 columns and there are 26 rows which will be displayed in your console. So that should be the expectation. So just see, there are total number of columns are 5 and total number of rows are 26. That is how you will be able to retrieve the table data. So now what I wanted to do is I wanted to display a particular value. Let us say I wanted to retrieve this value. So I wanted to retrieve this value. How do you do that? So to do that, what are you going to do? So first you will be right clicking and then you will be inspecting and then you will be highlighting that and ensure that you are giving the right property. Just say this one if you wanted to, and then see here, this is your text. Now if you wanted to take the XPath, copy and then copy XPath and then control F here and then see what is that you are going to do. See, I'm not going to take this. So TR2 and TD1, that is your respective text. So if you wanted to retrieve this particular text, you can simply make use of this using an element and then you can write it. Or else if you wanted to retrieve the entire data from all the places, like whatever the way you wanted to write, so you can write. So for example, if I want only one element, you will be writing for that particular element. If at all you want the total values, then you can retrieve it. Whichever the way you wanted to retrieve the value, you can retrieve it, but you need to understand what exactly you are going to do with that particular data. So to do that, what I am going to do is, first I will be writing a simple program to retrieve the cells. So let me create a new web table. Let's say I've already created one more dynamic web table one, and I'll just adjust it here by removing the unnecessary stuff. Okay. Till here, I'm just invoking the browser. So once you open the web application, first I wanted to identify the tag, which is my web element, which is a web element, which is my web element tag. How are we going to do that? So just select this, and then if you see, there is a web table here. So now what I wanted to do is I wanted to identify the table of this particular application. So how do you do? Right click and then copy XPath, and then here control F and then control V. See, the entire table got highlighted. See, if I press here, automatically this left side part, entire table data is highlighted. So now what I am going to do is I am going to take this and then define the web element, which is my base table or else the required table. So what I'm going to do is web element required table is equal to, what is my required table? You have your table, which is driver dot driver dot, and then you're going to find element by, and what is the tag I'm using? I'm using the tag name as table. By dot tag name. So what is my tag name? The tag name is table. So you all know, right? So how are we going to identify the element using a tag name? So here there is a table which is with the tag name. Then you will be simply able to identify with by dot tag name table and then give semicolon. Now what I wanted to do is I wanted to retrieve the particular row whichever you wanted to define. Let's say required row is my variable. Required row. So before you write the required row, you need to define it as a web element again. So take this, copy, and then paste it as required web element. And then what you're going to do is you are going to take the table. On this particular table, dot dot, you are going to have find element by dot x path. So you will be getting the x path for this particular table body. Where is that? You just, for example, this one you want. So you will be taking this and then inspect and then copy and then copy as copy x path and paste it here and see what is going to happen. So see here. So this is the x path. You will be simply copying and then pasting it here. Within the double quotes, you give this value. That means you got the row. Whatever the required row is there, that you have received. Now, what you wanted to do is you need to know the text value, what is there in the text value. So to do that, so whatever the value you have written, you just copy and then required data. I'm just assigning the data. So when you are taking any value or any data, you are going to define the data type as string. String row data is equal to, so you hold this value into this particular required row. So take this and then copy and then dot, you will be having get text. So use get text method, then automatically your data, whatever you are planning to, that will come there. So if you wanted to print that syso control space bar, then automatically your system.out.println will come and then give the data here. So I'm not writing anything here. I'm just giving the data. So which row it is? Second row of the data. So if you wanted to write that, you can write that also. Second row data and then plus symbol. So now if I try to run this program, see what is going to happen. Close this and then try to run this program. See what will happen. Once that is done, you go and look at the label and so second row data Apollo hospitals that has come. So if you see, so that Apollo hospitals data has come. So whatever the way you wanted to display, you can retrieve the number of rows and columns whichever you wanted to. So you already know how to retrieve your for loop, right? So you can make use of this web elements and then you can change it, and then instead of row and the data, for example, if you are using second row data, you are getting second. If I change it to sixth, what is sixth here? Just see 1 2 3 4 5 6 Power Finance Co will come. So now let me close this and then run it again. If I run this program, it will show PowerCo Finance that will be displayed as part of the data. So what you have to do is you need to understand how are we going to go through this, and then how do you retrieve the respective values by using the rows and columns. You can make use of a for loop and then iterate all the values and display whatever the values you want, or else if you want to display entire thing also, you can display. See here, second row, because I have written it as second row data that has come. So TR6, what is TR6? Let's see. 1 2 3 4 5 6. See, Sarah sanitary ware. So that is what it is displayed. So second row is just we wrote it, right? So you can write whatever you want. So if you don't write required data, if you write, that will be displayed. So this is our own message. So if you wanted to make it as generic, and then you just need to pass the parameter whatever you are